What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be going over a constant question that I get, and it's usually between the Galaxy Note 10 Plus and the Note 20 Ultra. Should you upgrade to the Galaxy S23 Ultra? Now, I did individual comparisons of these two phones against this phone, but I wanted to go ahead and update it for all the new people on the channel that I didn't see it, since we have a ton of new people as well. If you guys want this wallpaper, you can get it from Live Loop application. It is in the Play Store. It looks like this. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to go over the pros and cons and just make everything simple, everything that you need to know, all the essentials, and then you guys can sort of make your decision from there. Now let's talk about the price, because the S22 Ultra is a $1,200 phone, but if you go ahead and trade in your device, you can see for the Note 20 Ultra you get $600 off, and then the Note 10 Plus you get $430 off currently right now. And you can see it used to be $175, and then the Note 20 Ultra was $270. So you actually get a pretty good trade-in deal right now. I think that's pretty much what sparked a lot of you guys' interest, since you do get, a fairly good trade-in deal here. All right, so the first thing is the hardware with these phones. There's not a massive hardware difference like you would think here, which is pretty interesting. The Note 10 Plus and the Note 20 Ultra are pretty much on par with the S23 Ultra here. They all have this boxy design. I think the biggest difference is that the S23 Ultra might be a little bit easier to hold, since the sides are completely flat, but all of these phones, they have the boxy feel, and they cut into the hand at the bottom here, so they still all pretty much feel the same. Yeah, they pretty much feel the same still, and I think the Note 10 Plus design is still my favorite out of the bunch. I think it still looks really great with this really cool color. Just awesome, and it always catches people's eyes as well too. So as far as the design, not too much going on here. I think they all still look pretty fantastic. Also, all of these phones have the S Pen as well too. Now the S23 Ultra, it is you'll notice the accuracy. Does feel a bit more instant. So if you really use the S Pen a lot, you will notice that, but it's not a dramatic difference, right? And also, if you do digital artwork, maybe that will be like a really important thing for you. But if you're just using it just as a regular stylus, taking notes, navigating, it's not really that big of a difference. Also, guys, these two phones are glossy, the Note 10 Plus and the Note 20 Ultra. The S23 has a matte finish, and you definitely will get those fingerprints and stuff and smudges, so I'm glad that they went with a matte finish here. But yeah, as far as the hardware, we'll get into the speakers and stuff. They all have stereo speakers. Now, the big difference with hardware here, these two phones have SD card support. The S23 Ultra does not. All of these phones are IP68 dust and water resistant as well. But what's interesting is that the Note 10 Plus has the best option for storage, because it's default, or the base storage, 256 gigs, 12 gigs of RAM, SD card support. These are default 128 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM. So that's pretty interesting. The Note 20 Ultra might be 128 12 gigs, but regardless, it's still not as good as the Note 10 Plus. So that's what I really liked about this phone in particular. All right, so let's talk about the display differences here. So it's not as big as you think. So what's pretty interesting is that the Note 10 Plus, the oldest phone here, still pretty much looks on par with the S23 Ultra here. So as far as the display experience goes, there is a big difference, but it's also not at the same time, I think, for the average person. So the S23 Ultra has a 1440p display. It's 120 hertz. It's very bright at 1750 nits, so you can see it much easier in direct sunlight than these two phones. But again, you're not going to be in direct sunlight all the time, so I know that's not a big deal. They all have curved screens, but the S23 Ultra is not as curved. So the biggest difference here is that the Note 20 Ultra has 120 hertz. It's 1440p. But it can only be used at 1080p, so you can only do 120 hertz 1080p. This one you can do 120 hertz 1440p, so you get the full resolution. The Note 10 Plus does not have any type of high refresh rate. It's only 60 hertz at 1440p. Still beautiful displays, but yes, the S23 Ultra, of course, is going to have the better display here. But as you guys can see, just looking at them side by side, they look fine, guys. But like I said, the 120 hertz is something that's really nice to have. So if you're a big display person, I really like the display upgrade coming from the Note 10 Plus, just as like a person that really loves tech. But your average person, you might not really care about having a high refresh rate. So basically, I feel like once you use a high refresh rate, it's hard to go back to 60 hertz. But yeah, I don't think most people will find it necessary, but it is it overall feels smoother. Like everything looks smoother and faster on 120 hertz versus 60 hertz. If you have a Note 10 Plus, I wouldn't upgrade for the display because, even looking at this at 1080p, it still looks really good. Like, you don't really see the difference unless you look really close up. So that's the thing. So Note 20 Ultra display is very close to the S23 Ultra. I think if you're a big display person, it's a big upgrade coming from the Note 10 Plus, kinda. Alright guys, this always surprises people, but if you're a casual user or just, a normal person not doing too much on your phone, or even if you are doing gaming and stuff like that, there's not a massive difference, I'm telling you guys. So we got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 on the S23. We have the Snapdragon 865 chip on here, and then we have the Note 10 Plus with the Snapdragon 855. Guys, there's not a massive difference, especially coming from the Note 20 Ultra here. So we can play at 90 frames, like a game like PUBG, but also on the Note 20 Ultra, we can also play at 90 frames, and they both look and feel smooth. Now, the Note 10 Plus with the Snapdragon 855, it can't do the 90 frames, but it can do HDR Extreme, and it plays that really well too. So it can play this at 60 frames pretty easily. So I would say the overall gaming experience is still really good on these older flagships. Yes, of course, if you are a very serious gamer, of course the S23 Ultra is going to do a very good job. I've been really impressed with how cool the phone is able to stay as well too. But if you're coming from a Note 20 Ultra, you definitely don't need to upgrade. And if you're not a heavy gamer and you have a Note 10 Plus, you really don't need to upgrade as well too, because this does a pretty good job at playing, most games in the Play Store just fine. So like I said, if you're not a serious gamer, you don't really need to upgrade. But the Note 20 Ultra, it will surprise you that it does an excellent job when it comes to gaming. Alright guys, here are the Geekbench scores, as you can see, for the single core, and then here are the scores for your multi-core. You can see the S23 Ultra, just a massive jump when it comes to these scores here. It's a very, very fast phone. But like I said, for the average person, it's really not that, you're not going to notice that big of a difference. So I'll show you guys like something here. And we'll go ahead and launch Subway Surf. Try to get this open at the same time just to show you guys. The casual user is not going to really notice too much of a difference. As you can see, Note 20 Ultra almost pretty much on par with the S23 Ultra, and the Note 10 Plus wasn't that far behind. So even if we just go to something like YouTube, and this surprises a lot of people because these companies do a really good job with marketing, but as you can see, Note 10 Plus is really, on par with the you guys can see, very fast. Even when we're bouncing in and out of applications, multitasking, the animations on these older phones are still very smooth. So that's why I said, guys, it's not a big of an upgrade as you think. These older phones are really meant to last. And as far as your additional features, you still have all the same features pretty much on all of these phones. Samsung desktop support, reverse wireless charging, Dolby Atmos. You're not really getting anything new as far as the software experience. Now let's actually talk about the software experience, because this actually is a pretty big point here. So the Note 10 Plus, it's still getting security patches, surprisingly, but this is going to be its last year getting security patches, I'm sure. The Note 20 Ultra is still getting security patches as well too. But both of these phones are done getting major OS updates. This one last update Android 13, One UI 5.1. This one got Android 12, One UI 4.1. This phone is going to have a pretty long lifespan. Samsung pledge, I believe, is 4 years of major OS updates, and then you get, I think, 4 or 5 years of security patches as well too. So you will be getting, the major OS updates, of course, on the newer phone. Now Samsung made a pretty big improvement with the stereo speaker, especially on the S23 Ultra, considering the S22 Ultra speakers was not that good. So let's go ahead and hear them all side by side. okay, S23 Ultra definitely a little louder, a little bit better bass. Yeah, the S23 Ultra is definitely louder. So they did make a pretty good improvement in the space, but the Note 20 Ultra, Note 10 Plus still have really good speakers as well too. All these phones have the same fingerprint scanner, so I get that question a lot, like, is a fingerprint scanner that much faster? Is it noticeably faster? No, it still actually feels the same speed even on like an S10, so they still pretty much feel the same. Now let's go ahead and talk about one of the biggest reasons people upgrade, and it's for the cameras, guys. The S23 Ultra is a pretty big upgrade when you're coming from a Note 10 Plus as far as the cameras go. There's a lot going on with the cameras, a lot of new stuff that you have that you can take advantage of. Now, in my opinion, as far as just actual stills and good lighting, there's not a big difference, but when we get to lower light, when we get to zooming, we get to, being able to shoot an 8K video, the Note 10 Plus, it just, not going to be able to keep up. But you can see Note 10 Plus, we have 2x optical zoom, and we can go to 10 times zoom. But on the S23 Ultra, we can do the 100 times zoom, and it just zooms really far. The 10 times zoom shots are amazing on here. So you are getting much better zoom shots on the S23 Ultra for sure. Like I said, you get higher resolution video, you get better super steady on here, or you have super steady on here. You don't have it on the Note 10 Plus. But like I said, as far as these stills, I think the Note 10 Plus still takes really good stills and good lighting. But like I said, you take it out of good lighting, any type of low lighting, then you start to see its age a little bit. And also one of the biggest things here is the higher resolution camera, right? You have a 200 megapixel camera on the S23 Ultra, so you get some very, very high resolution shots on here. So if you like to crop and zoom in, it's pretty crazy versus the 12 megapixel. Now with the Note 20 Ultra, yes, you have the 50 times zoom, which is pretty good on here. 10 times zoom is good. You have the 50 times hybrid zoom. It feels a little bit more on par with the S23 Ultra. This also has very high resolution stills as well too. It shoots in 108 megapixels as well. And for video on here, it has really high resolution video as well too. It shoots in 8K, 24 on here. The Note 10 Plus is only able to shoot in 4K 60. So I would say it's not big of an upgrade when you're coming from a Note 20 Ultra. Yes, the S23 Ultra does take better photos than the Note 20 Ultra, but I feel like it's not that much big of a gap since you still have the really good zoom, really good high res shots. This does pretty decent job in lower light settings. It's not as good as this phone, so I would say unless you're really, really into cameras, guys, like you're gonna be, vlogging and maybe you want to do YouTube shorts or TikTok or something like that, do something like that, social media, then it would be a pretty good upgrade because I think the cameras are definitely worth that. But if you're just taking stills and taking video here and there, I don't think it's really worth that type of money. Because the Note 20 Ultra still takes very, very good shots. Alright guys, so one of the biggest upgrades with the S23 Ultra in my opinion is really the battery life. This phone has phenomenal battery life. Like, it is shockingly good. It is really, really good. 5,000 milliamp battery on here, and it's noticeably better than the Note 10 Plus and the Note 20 Ultra. It lasts pretty much a day and a half for me. It's a very, very good battery life. Samsung really stepped it up in the battery department on here. So if you're somebody that is really wanted better battery life on these Note phones, this is the phone to get. I mean, I think that's probably the best upgrade that they did this year. I would have liked to see faster charging on here, but this does 45 watt charging. The Note 10 Plus actually does 45 watt charging also as well too. But a lot of people want to know, is the battery life significantly better? I think so. I think it's definitely better for sure. And like I said, actually shockingly better. I think you'll be surprised at how good the battery life is on this phone. But besides that, all of these phones have wireless charging. All these phones have reverse wireless charging. And these phones can get around 6 hours of screen on time. I actually did a battery drain test on it. Yeah, so these phones do decent job at battery life, but this is definitely an actual upgrade when it comes to battery performance. So that pretty much sums up the, comparison. I think it's a pretty good upgrade depending on what you're doing on your phone. If you're not really doing a whole bunch on your phone, you're not like a hardcore user, I would say wait it out for S24 Ultra. I think it'll be a little bit better upgrade for you guys because these phones, they feel really close to each other. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.